Hello everyone, welcome. Today we're going to talk about a very interesting topic. I see everyone here, welcome. And I'll start projecting and we'll talk about some interesting things that are happening in the market. Let me just project. So today we're actually going to talk about a topic that is kind of influencing almost everything, kind of happened in the last 6 months. And that is particularly Google has started to be more selective about which pages are actually being crawled, how they're crawled, which impacts performance both in LLMs, AI overviews, and both in search rankings. And today we're going to talk about the challenges that are impacting this, how other parameters on your website may be affected, and how to address this issue. It's quite an interesting topic, very new topic, which we're introducing into our system also. So the first thing you need to understand and know is that Google sees this crawling of a website, or generally the internet by itself, as like an infinite amount of data, and therefore Google needs to be selective. It's impossible to crawl everything, and therefore they need to make decisions about what is being crawled and how often. In addition to that, there were some core algorithms that were introduced, not just for crawl budget. And this is something that will continue to happen and will have continuous effect how crawlable your website is and the reasons for this. The main thing to understand is there are basically two things that determine how your website is being crawled, how often it is, and the quality of the crawling. The first thing is whether Google allocated enough crawling capacity, meaning does it provide resources to crawl all your pages? And secondly, it may decide not to index certain pages because of the content quality. So these are the two main issues that are influencing your overall indexing of your website. And we need to take care of both of these things in order to be effective in your website visibility. There are a few things to note here. First of all, the time and resources that Google dedicates to a website is limited. Google discovers and indexes pages even if it discovers them, it may not index them. Large websites struggle more with the crawling budget, but smaller websites also struggle with the quality of the pages. So it's a mix of the content of the pages. So it's a mix. There isn't just one element that you need to deal with. You need to deal with a variety of it. What is content quality crawl efficiency? So content quality basically means, is this page valuable? Does it have enough content to interest people? Is it useful for them? And this is something that we need to address. If we don't have useful content, or certain pages don't have useful content, then your pages will not be surfaced to users. So this is something that Google algorithms analyze and determine whether eventually your content is worthy of being surfaced to users or not. So this is what we call content quality crawl efficiency. Are enough pages of your website being crawled? One of the good examples is that you may use different content generation tools, and you can create tens, hundreds, and thousands of pages, or you can programmatically generate pages for different reasons, but Google may not eventually present them or index them in the search results. So this is one part. Second part is the crawl budget. So the crawl budget is what we discussed before, are there enough resources for Google to actually go and do these things? So we talked about these two. And eventually there are other parameters, not just how your web pages are indexed, but what instructions you give to Google in order to crawl your pages or your websites effectively. One of those, or some of those, are the robots.txt file. Robot.txt file is basically the first file that crawler hits on a website. And based on this, there are some rules that says you can crawl this, you cannot crawl this. It refers to the sitemap, which is the second type of file that is very important, and might be blocked because of an SSL certificate. Pages may not be loading because of speed, and there are different things that might affect this. So what you also need to ensure in parallel is whether all these configurations are configured correctly, effectively, and they're not preventing or blocking Google from crawling. Just as an example, you may have a sitemap that includes a certain amount of pages, and you're simply not listing another set of pages or categories that are valuable. It can be product categories, but if they're not specified in the sitemap or they're not linked to other pages, they will simply might not be seen. So this is the second thing that should be very important to note. And of course, this is something that you need to configure correctly. As you may remember from our last webinar and some of our announcements, basically we are introducing a layer on top of our system that will help you deal with these issues. So the variety of issues that a website or an agency needs to deal with is increasingly very high. There's different topics, and our strategy is to allow you to exit our system with the right data in order to implement whatever procedures or to collect any data that you would like to do. In this particular case, we're going to analyze the crawling. Before we go to the live demo, this is the prompt execution layer that we have in our system. And you simply choose the website that you want to analyze, and then you get the set of prompts that you can run from. So let's just dive into the demo. By the way, you can ask questions at any time, and we'll answer them all probably after the demo. But feel free to send the messages and we'll try to answer. All of you are familiar with our Nitro system. It, of course, can do many things, but today we're going to focus on the crawling. So basically, recently, maybe you didn't even notice, but we introduced the ability to download and export data from the system both in Excel format and both in marked down version. The reason that we're doing this is because LLMs or other AI agents, they find it difficult to understand and read through a lot of data, especially if it's part of a larger file. But they are able, and they are trained on an MD4 format, markdown format. So when you go to our system, you're able to export data in different ways. In this particular case, when you want to pass the data to an LLM, we would recommend to use an MD4. First thing that I will do is go into the pages section, for example, and I would ask to export all the data into a file. And you can decide which data you want to export, your current view or all your data. And also you can decide to export the page content. All of these things will be released very soon, and you'll be able to export them in an MD format. So all you need to do is just confirm, and the file will be downloaded into your desktop. Once it's done, all you need to do is just go into the website dashboard and press the prompt execution layer, and you will be presented with a variety of possible actions or analysis or whatever it is that you want to do. One of them will be crawling budget. You can look at. So this is, we introduced this one, which is a crawl budget analyzer. You can look at the configuration of the data. It's visible to you. This is the LLM that we're using. In this case, ChatGPT, but it can also work with Claude. And inside the prompt itself, we've added placeholders that are taking data from the system. Let me show you, looking at full data. And the data that is extracted from the system will be inside the prompt itself. Yeah, the green text is the one that is extracted from our system. And basically, when you will press run prompt, it will take you to your favorite LLM. And here, what I will do, I will simply add the file that I extracted before I downloaded here. So you have all the data for Nitro in this particular case. It can be for your website in a markdown format. You have the prompt with all the instructions from the system, which is a very intelligent and capable prompt that is supported in the configuration itself. So if you would go only to an LLM without a prompt configuration, it will not do the same type of job. So just taking the prompt data and not going into the specific GPT or specific skill, and it will not do the same type of analysis. So it's important to have all the data and also to have the configuration data inside here. So this is why it's becoming effective. So it's a mix of two sides of the equation. Now, all I need to do is press the run the analysis, and I will get the data. In this particular case, I have the data here, and then you can just present it and you can take decisions. So the report analyzed my crawling budget, and there's three types of crawling analysis that we're conducting with this particular one. For example, the quality, content quality index, crawl budget index, and the combined result for all tools. You would ask yourself, why is there a content quality issue here? The answer is simple, because we generated a few location-based pages which Google didn't think that they are very unique or not enough unique. Although we did a very good job in that, still Google decided that they are not unique enough. So this programmatic generation of content is highly problematic, and I would highly recommend to you not to use tools that generate content that has not been validated as being effective and as being accepted by Google. We also deal with this, by the way, within our system, and we will cover it in different ways. And then you get the summary, the dashboard of all the data. This was all generated from the data that we extracted from the system. Basically, so from the system itself, we've taken data, and based on this data, all this analysis is generated. And you can see exactly how many URLs are indexed, which ones are okay, which ones are not okay, which one has issues, which one don't. And it's very useful information. At the end of the day, what is important for you is to understand that you have an issue with content, to understand that you don't have an issue or have an issue with your crawling budget. Now, for example, on this website that we analyze, why the crawling budget is not that problematic, because the amount of pages has not stressed the capacity that Google can allocate. The nice thing about this now is that you can simply go in and ask questions. For example, and it already has the data. It can generate the reports for you based on the analysis that you've done. So it's basically endless possibilities. You can identify the pages that needs updating. You can identify the pages that you can delete or redirect. Anything you need to do can be actually done from this prompt once you generated it. And then you can take decisions or run additional checks or do additional actions. So basically, this concept makes NytroSEO an unlimited platform to do almost anything that you need to do in order to make your website more visible for any platform, whether it's search results, traditional search results, whether it's Google AI overview, and whether it's AI LLMs. By the way, one of the most interesting things that you need to be aware of, that also ChatGPT and Claude and others, they use search engines like Google, not Google, but like Google, to index the pages and get the pages data themselves. So eventually everyone crawls the pages. There is crawling issues with almost any type of analysis of a website, even if they're presented as overviews or if they're presented as a list of possible results. If you go back to the system, and let me just show the possible, while it's actually running on that analysis. So we can go into the full management of the prompts. We're adding prompts all the time, and we're adding different capabilities all the time. We have also audit. So you can run a full audit on SEO website. Now, just one thing to know, a lot of people came to me and said, you know, why can't I just go into Claude and ask it to SEO optimize my website? The reality is that many of these LLMs, they can't read or get a lot of data, even if they give you the impressions that they can. For example, a sitemap cannot always be read by these LLMs. A robots.txt file can very often not be read by these LLMs, and they often don't tell you that. Without this data that I just mentioned now, or without a very wide set of data, the analysis, that the results that you will get will be very limited. So you remember I asked about which pages you recommend. So here is the results that were generated, and we can just take a look here. It's doing a very comprehensive analysis, including how many impressions, how many clicks, whether Google indexed this, whether there were internal links that refer to it, and then it tells you what to do. And then you can take this one, for example, which was, you see this one is a location page that I was just mentioning before, and it did get some impressions. So you can go and generate an updated version of this page that is based on this with local proof, examples, pricing. So it just tells you to add more unique content and more relevant to the specific location in Spain. So it's really very easy to do, and then you just go and you create that content. This is basically how the system works, and it will give you a full power to do. The other thing that we will be introducing shortly is to take that data from this report and to ask an LLM to execute this for you. We will cover this in a separate webinar. For example, you can download this report, you can pass it to Claude, or you can pass it to OpenAI Codex, and they can actually start creating this content, connect to your CMS, and upgrading this. So the scalability here is very good, very powerful, and we'll actually show you how to do these things in next webinars. Yes, we're also introducing, it's not released yet, but you can wait to see this announcement shortly. We're also introducing a crawl budget analysis that takes all the Google Search Console data, takes other data that we collect, and present this to you in a way that is actionable. And this will be released within the next month as part of the premium services. But at the same time, you can execute the same analysis using the prompt section from this part here. So just so that you know, we have different levels of analysis and execution, and it will all be available. So I think that we kind of covered the main part of the webinar, and we're opening the floor for questions. Okay, so this is a very good question, and let me just explain what the question was. So one of the questions that is, if I have a website with a lot of product information, in this particular case regarding vehicles, will this be a possibility for Google to decide not to index them? The answer is absolutely yes. And you need to take action and analyze this. Of course, you can do it with the way that we just described now. Let's go to the next question. The content which could be generated via NytroLLM, it seems to be valid for Google, or might be a problem if it's made. I'm not sure what KI means, but the content that we're generating via Nitro, either by Excel or MD, can be read by any LLM, by ChatGPT or Claude or the Chinese LLMs. It doesn't matter. It's a markdown version of the data, which is very easy for them to read. So I would say absolutely yes, it's possible to be read. Okay, let's see. Means AI. Yes, it can be read. Of course, it's meant to be. By the way, the LLMs, the AI LLMs are trained on MD data, markdown data. So it's the most natural way for them to read data. Let's see what other questions we may have here. I think that we also sent you a survey. If you had a chance to take a look at that survey and answer, it would be very useful. And let's just see if we have any other questions. Everyone, please feel free to play a little bit with the prompts, to run some reports. Bear in mind that it's relatively new functions that we're introducing, and there might be some issues that needs to be addressed. So feel free to reach out to our support if you face some issues, and we're here to support you. We're going to introduce new webinars going through all the possibilities of running the system in different scenarios. As I said, including running different prompts, including connecting them to LLMs for execution, to actually make the changes and the fixes. There are different strategies on how to do that. And in general, I think that there's a lot of things that are changing in the market, and we're kind of at the forefront of these changes to support you and to make you, of course, your business visible, whether it's an agency or a sole entrepreneur, a small business, can help any one of those cases. I just saw another question. Should I just delete pages that are not indexed if they're similar to others? The answer is no. You need to analyze and decide whether they're worthy of an upgrade. And it's better to upgrade an existing page than to delete this. In any case, deletion is probably not the right way. You need to redirect that page to the main page that discusses this topic. Thank you, everyone, and see you soon.